Little Ant Goes to a Picnic by S.M.R. Saia. Pictures by PreK. One day, Uncle Ant announced that some of the ants would be going to a picnic. All the younger ants were excited. "I'm going to bring the biggest and tastiest crumb back from the picnic," Little Ant said. "A picnic can be a dangerous place," Uncle Ant told them all. "Only the biggest and most experienced ants will go to the picnic." Little Ant stood by hopefully as Uncle Ant selected who would go to the picnic. Each ant who was chosen boasted that he would find and carry the biggest and tastiest crumb. Little Ant waited and waited and waited, but Uncle Ant did not call Little Ant's name. This made Little Ant angry. He did not like to be reminded that he was little. The little ants complained that they could work like big ants if only they were given a chance. "No one will see me as big ant until I do something that a big ant would do," Little Ant thought to himself as he watched the ants set off. "I will follow their trail," he decided. "I will find the biggest and tastiest crumbs. I will prove to everyone in the anthill that I am not a little ant anymore." The trail went on, and still Little Ant did not see a picnic. Soon he lost sight of the other ants. He had not known that the picnic would be so far away from home. Then he saw something up ahead. It got bigger and bigger as he got closer and closer. "It's the picnic!" Little Ant cried. Little Ant did not see the other ants. This was his chance to find the biggest and tastiest crumb. The bigger the crumb, the bigger the ant, he thought to himself, setting to work. Little Ant ran into the picnic, picking up crumbs and then dropping them again as soon as he found bigger ones. Soon he found the perfect crumb. Just as Little Ant was getting ready to set off for home, the ground began to shake, and Little Ant lost his grip on the crumb. A shadow fell over him. He looked up, and his heart froze. Little Ant dove for cover. He had not known that he might get squished. The giant foot came down onto his crumb and smashed it flat before moving on. When the danger was gone, Little Ant came out, still trembling. A big ant, Little Ant knew, would not come home from a picnic without a crumb, even if he had almost gotten squished. So he picked up the first crumb that he saw and ran this way and that, trying to find his way out of the picnic. But he had stopped following the trail of the other ants when he had seen the giant crumbs, and he hadn't put down a trail of his own. Little Ant scurried up a small hill, hoping he might be able to see the anthill. Suddenly, the hill began to move. Little Ant was so startled that he dropped his crumb as he was lifted into the air. He was higher than the top of the highest anthill. He was higher than he had ever seen a butterfly go. Then he found himself face to face with a human. Though his heart thumped hard and fast, Little Ant's chest swelled with pride. Surely no other ant had ever looked a human in the eye before. Surely when the others heard about this, they would have to admit that Little Ant was a big ant after all. Then the human noticed Little Ant. He gave his hand a sharp shake, and the little ant was flung into the air. Little Ant sailed over the picnic. He looked back at the cakes and the sandwiches, the pickles and the olives, the berries and the grapes. He looked back at the humans, who were no longer aware of him. Then he looked forward at his empty hands. Clearly there was more to gathering crumbs from a picnic than he had imagined. He bounced off a leaf, tumbled down into the grass, and landed hard on his bottom. When he opened his eyes, Uncle Ant and the others were in front of him. "Little Ant," Uncle Ant said, "I did not choose you to come to this picnic. What are you doing here?" "No one will see me as a big ant until I do things that big ants do," Little Ant explained. "A big ant does not leap into things that he doesn't understand," Uncle Ant said. "You could have been squished." Little Ant thought of how close he had come to being squished. "You could have been flicked," Uncle Ant said. Little Ant thought of his ride on the human's hand and of how close he came to being flicked. Uncle Ant showed Little Ant the trail that led back to the anthill. "Follow this home," Uncle Ant said. "We will see you when we return." With that, Uncle Ant and the others turned back to where the picnic had recently been. The humans were gone, so they proudly set to work. A thoughtful little ant followed their trail all the way back to the anthill, carefully looking at what might be ahead of him beyond every stem and rock. He was still determined to become one of the big ants, even if the only way to do it is one small decision at a time.